she had a sister called Mary who sat at Jesus' feet and heard his word. But Martha was distracted with much serving, and she approached him and said, Lord, do you not care that my sister has left me to serve alone? Therefore tell her to help me. Do you pray like that? Do you pray the Lord would tell some people what you want them to be told? And Jesus answered her and said to her, Martha, Martha, you are worried and troubled about many things, but one thing is needed. And Mary has chosen that good part, and it will not be taken away from her. Isn't that wonderful? There's various scriptural references to Martha in the Bible, this passage, and then the passage concerning the death of her brother Lazarus, and how she met Jesus when he came to the tomb. And Martha, I like Martha because she's very outspoken. She always speaks her mind. Very often in the scriptures, Jesus is quoted as saying something along the lines of, it says, knowing what they were thinking, Jesus said. But he never had to need to give to the word of knowledge to Martha. Because he just came right out and told him to his face what she was thinking. So this morning too, I wanted to share something really that's on my mind. And it concerns a subject that the Lord brings me back to again and again and again. And will continue to. And really it's speaking about being alone with him. About knowing him. About intimacy with God. We heard it again this morning when the Lord was asking us to come nearer, as it were. I used to think that it would be a terrible thing, I think I've said this before, to get to the end of your life and realize that you hadn't reached what you thought you'd reached, that you hadn't got what you thought you should have got, that you hadn't reached your full potential. But the more I come to see the sovereignty of God, I realize that there's something much worse. And that would be to come to the end of your life and see that the very most precious thing that you've always looked for was always yours. It was right under your nose, and you missed it. And that is the truth. That is the truth. And that's in fact what Jesus said. In Matthew 25, he said, there'd be many in that day, the day of judgment, who would face him one day to be told that they had ignored him for years and years and years, and he was right there with them. You remember the words? I was hungry and you give me no food. I was thirsty and you give me no drink. I was a stranger and you did not take me in. Naked and you did not clothe me. Sick and in prison and you did not visit me. But Lord, when were you with us? They will reply. And Jesus will say, assuredly I say to you, inasmuch as you did not do it to one of the least of these, you did not do it to many. It's amazing when you read a passage of Scripture, what it makes you feel like doing. Now, when I read that to you, what does that make you feel like doing? Because very often, you see, what we do is a response to who we think God is. You see, if I think that God is asking me to get out there and work harder and do more to help him save the world, in other words, if I think that God's opinion of me is based on my performance, then when I read a passage of Scripture like that, I think, God, I must do more. I must do more. I must do more. And what I want to say to you this morning is, that's the exact opposite of what the Lord is saying to us through this Scripture. It's not an exhortation or a challenge to do more for the Lord, but to be more with the Lord. And those are the two pictures I want to give you with Martha and Mary today. You can do more for, or you can be more with. And be more with, in the end of the day, produces the fruit. You see, the tendency, I guess, of my life is to do more for. Perhaps because I grew up maybe thinking that God's opinion of me was based on my performance. And that he judges my worth according to my performance. Maybe you found it hard to enter into worship this morning because you too thought, I've had a terrible week. I'm a rotten person. I don't feel like these people feel like. God, if they knew what's really happening in my life, I shouldn't even be here probably. Anybody struggle with thoughts like that? Or am I the only person? You see? Because we naturally put onto God how we're treated in this world. In this culture, this world, it treats us according to our performance. Perform better, you'll be loved better. Perform better, you'll be worth more. And so what we do on a Sunday is we come back to basics and we say, he loved us while we were still sinners. This is the worth he puts in us. He poured out his blood. That's how much we're worth. And for us to absorb that will settle us. will put us in a place of peace and rest. But until we receive that from Christ, there will be no rest for our souls. So in this passage we've chosen, we can see that one person is sitting and one person is doing. But before I say anything else about Martha, I think we should ask this question: what does Jesus think about Martha? And we get the answer in the very first line of that passage. It says, "Now it happened, as they went, that he entered a certain village, and a certain woman named Martha welcomed him into her home." That's what Jesus thinks about when he thinks about Martha. Me and you may think about someone running around or in the kitchen. Jesus, when he thinks about Martha, he thinks about a woman who had a welcome for him. When he knew he was going to go to the cross, where did he go? When he knew all that horror was coming upon him, he went to Martha's house. So whatever else we say about Martha today, can you say that about your house and me about my life? That Jesus looks at us and says, well, at least I can get a welcome in Phelim's life. At least he'll stop whatever he's doing and he'll open up his home and his life to me. So, before we say anything else about Martha, I just want to say to you, Martha is blessed and worthy of honour. Can I also say that Martha, when she made room for Christ, that did not come without a cost. There was a cost to that. There's a cost to making room for Christ. After all, when he arrived at Martha's home, he arrived with his disciples. I mean, that was quite a thing to put on a spread like that, No wonder her woman was going around in circles. It was a cost there, you see, because to make room for Christ, you have to put out something else. Something else has to be put aside. That's where the cost is. If we're to be devoted to Christ, it means the things that we're devoted to right now have to be put to one side. To be devoted to someone is to give them what's most precious to you. What is most precious to you and I on this earth? Very often we only realize what's most precious when it's running out. It is said that Queen Elizabeth I on her deathbed said, "I would give half of my kingdom for another hour of life." And if I told you you only an hour to live, you would think too of all the things you wish you could have said and you wish you could have done. Time is our most precious thing. And the greatest act of worship is to give it to him. Is to be with him. Not do for him, but be with him. I sometimes think that we struggle so much to be alone with God, to be quiet with God, because we find ourselves left with the most critical person in our lives, us. That's why we don't like being alone. We'd rather do everything else. We'd rather run here, run there. We'd rather say a whole pile of stuff. But to be alone with him is so difficult. Because alone with him, we see ourselves for who we really are. And we don't like ourselves. It's like the story of this